Now we're live. A lot of people ask me, Dean, why do you go live? Why don't you just record it? Why don't you just record it and like make it slick and make it nice and bells and whistles? Just record it and put it out. Make it think. We don't do that here. I can't do that. It's like it's not in me. Got to go live every day, 3 o'clock ish, maybe 4. It depends.
I like
We're all live.
thing.
There's Lachlan Cross. He's live too.
It adds a certain level of chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
I live for it.
I live for that awkwardness, that chaos.
Just knowing anything can go wrong at any point in time. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, I can't not do it. Like when people are listening to this, the reason why we go live every day is 2 reasons. 1, I love the excitement. I like the nightlife. I like to boogie. The second thing is, it's like a handrail for me. It like prevents the worst version of myself knowing I can go back and take something out if I'm offside. Right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a legitimate necessity to go live, because what it does is it says, hey, Dino, just so you know, you could throw it away at any point in time with that fat mouth of yours. And so now I know that I can. It's like, fuck, it's live. Now we got hundreds of people watching us live every day. It's to the point where I'm like, I feel like I could do something or say something just to really fucking throw a monkey wrench into my life's plans, something just nefarious, something awful. I've always had a trouble with it. I've always had a trouble with it. I've always struggled with the notion that at any point in time, in a very special moment or in a live moment, I've always struggled with the idea that I could just ruin it for everybody right now. Like the idea of going to a wedding, right? Every time you've gone to a wedding, you just sit there and you don't think. You tell me for a second. Well, if you did, when you used to, you telling me that you never sat there and thought I could ruin this day for everybody by standing up and screaming Armageddon in the middle of the fucking ceremony. You've never
I have
thought
way
that?
better ideas on how to ruin a wedding.
Like you could watch up and punch the groom right in the face in the middle of I do.
I don't necessarily think I should be sharing my thoughts because it's going to make me look awful. Make me look like an awful
we're live, so
being.
you can't. If we were recording, you could share the thoughts and we could take them out and make you sound like less of a douche, is what I'm saying.
Literally, I've been to very few weddings in my life. Very few.
Allowed? Are you not allowed? Is that the
don't
deal?
Get invited. I don't have
you
friends.
Get too drunk? Oh, you don't have friends. That one.
Did you have that on your bingo card?
No, I didn't.
I've literally been to 3 weddings in my life.
And one of them was yours?
My daughter's getting married. And
you got to go to that one.
I'm going to that one. And there is a great deal of fear. It gets talked about almost weekly in this house about me, what I'm going to do. And I've been fucking with them too. Like I told them, I sent them pictures of like this full white tux that I want. They asked me about a tux. I want this one with a cowboy hat.
Like a Dumb and Dumber thing? Yeah, like mocking the process. Yeah. I get it.
I said, every once in a while, I'll interject myself into the group text and go, oh, I'm going to need to talk to the sound and lights guy for my speeches. Can I have their number?
And they're like, no, you can't.
I want a live mic through the whole thing. Just a headset. My daughter's terrified about the prospect of getting married with me in the crowd.
Yeah. Well, because you're sort of like, you're like in one of those guys that loves a train wreck. Like, and you don't mind starting a few, right? And this is my point. If we go live, we can't have these train wrecks. And if we did, then we're on the hook for it. Like we've had some people say some pretty rotten things on this podcast, and not intentionally, just kind of included. Yourself included, where we've had to go back and literally cut it out of the podcast after the fact and hope that no one saw it live. Sometimes that happens. But we're live today, and we're live with a friend of ours from the network as well. Please welcome to the program.
Oh, can I say, before you bring him in, I say that also part of the reason why I enjoy going live is because I know that it drives Matt Cundill a little bit crazy. So every day I get a bit of joy from the fact that he is a part of this network.
Yeah. And we go live every day.
And is seething about the idea that we go live every day and we don't pre-record and make it nice.
No, that's not his problem. He doesn't care. Matt Cundill joins us now from Sound Off Media. No, he doesn't. He really doesn't care.
He hates this.
No, he doesn't hate it.
No, you have to understand that I come from the Valerie Geller School of Broadcast, and she's the best performance and talent consultant out there. Anything you can record, you can make better. And so if you happen to be working with a piece that is recorded, you can always make it better. That's all.
So, okay. So here's a question. if that's the case, because Lachlan,
Valerie
you
has
guys,
her
we've
head
all
up her
known each
ass.
other for 20 years, so everybody will have to kind of fucking bear with us because we're going to take strip shots at each other, have some fun, joke around a little bit. Matt is a very, very experienced program director of radio stations. He also runs Canada's biggest podcast building and branding company called Sound Off Media. He also happens to be our partner at deanblundell.com, morphing into something in the new year. Can't really talk about it. But Matt's experience in the world of podcasting, live recording, etc., is something that we lean on a tremendous amount, whether it's attribution, whether it's information, whether it's data. That's right, Locke. Check those teeth in the middle of the podcast. Attaboy, check them. So here's my question. Do we stress you out because we refuse to record? There's the question.
No, not at all. I think with audio, there's two piles. There's the live pile and there's the on-demand pile.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and Locke lives there. Dean, you live there. You guys are just, kick ass on the radio, experience over time, and you've learned to do it live. And so by all means do it. You've got a tremendous advantage over everybody else. But for, the rest of us who are in the podcast world, it is on demand because people can go and listen to it whenever they want. And they can do that with this too. But I think, look at all the number of people who are like watching this right now. That's an incredible number. And yeah, you should be going live every day. And you can also make it on demand, which is why you got involved with me. And we make this, on demand, and we handle that portion of it in podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So here's a question. Because
admit it, Cundill. Cundill, this stresses
crazy.
You out.
It is. I do have to be more on. That's for sure.
But here's the thing. I'll tell you something. Like I can sit here. Listen, we're a podcast company, and then over the next couple of months, we're gonna reveal to everybody the things that we've been working on. But to get to the point that we've needed to get to, we've had to partner with people who know what they're doing. Matt is the best podcast branding builder guy on the planet, specifically in Canada, and we work with him because he gives us a decided advantage, and we help him out. So it's a value added thing, right? That's what we do in Canada. We work with people that we enjoy working with. But here's a question I would have. There are a lot of people out there, because no one ever talks about podcasts. You just go and do them. No one ever talks about best practices. It's like the fucking Wild West of podcasts. And there are so many people in the industry that are coming out of traditional media that listen to this podcast, because sometimes we might dip into it, right? But at what point, and here's a question I would have for you.
Dip into the conversation about traditional media.
About exactly, about podcasting, because Lachlan and I are prepping this thing where we've obviously all together, we built this kind of neat little business that relies on different people and parts. But like, what would you tell somebody today that's like, I'm coming out of traditional media? What am I supposed to do? Where do I start? Because it's not like this has been 2-3 years in the process, right? For you, it's been several years. For me, it's been a few years. But it's not like you can just start a podcast, walk off the radio, or get out of television and go, fuck, boom, there I am. Now I'm just picking up where I left off, right?
Takes 3 years to build an audience.
3 years?
Says 3 years to build an audience. It's the same way, like, hey, Locke, when they launched Cruise in Edmonton, that took a long time before it began to get some good ratings traction. When it's not easy, you can go and do the one book thing. It takes 3 years.
It turned around when I got there.
See? Exactly. That is true, but it does take a little bit of time. You had a morning show. The version that you did with the morning show with Nicola did not take off right away.
Doubled the ratings in 8 months.
Yes, but then it crescendoed, and then you had to take it up again in another fashion, though, right?
Well, no, it kept going up and has been going up ever since. Yeah. The difference was, she drove everyone crazy, and.
But then it went, again, though, it comes to another level.
We had to switch gears because of Dean knows.
Go ahead.
Dean knows it.
Don't stop in the middle of the fucking conversation. Just say it. Just go ahead and fucking say it. It's more uncomfortable when you're not talking.
Sometimes personalities don't work out in a building, in a room, so changes need to be made. Sometimes the ratings are there. Sometimes it's not about the ratings and a change that people do, like that change wasn't made because of ratings. They sunk that thing. They were at a certain level and it was below a 1.
Yeah.
I think I got it to a 3 share in 8 months. Boom, right away.
And so answer, go ahead.
All I'm saying is, I get what you're saying. And you're right. It does. We're now hitting a stride after 6 years. And every year I feel this gear we hit. And Dean, you did it. You felt it too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Dean
it's
had
like
similar
3 to 5 years.
success
It's
in
3 to 5
Toronto.
years, right? Like that's what we used to tell people on the radio. It's 3 to 5 years before you get to a point where you're like,
podcast.
okay, I'm comfortable. We've got a foundation and we can build. But it's not the same in the podcast. And I found that, Matt, as soon as I started to do this, I was like, everything's different here. You can't rely on anything that you learned in that traditional space. The only thing that matters is that time frame that you give yourself traditionally to be consistent, correct?
But yeah, you don't have the brand of the radio station. You can't necessarily just go to the phones. You're your own tech person. You have to do your own sales. You've got to do all your own marketing. So, I think it's an absolutely huge grind. And then you'll sit there and one day say to yourself, I shouldn't have probably badmouthed, insulted, and belittled some of the people that I worked with along the way in various departments that you are currently failing at in your own personal, YouTube journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we have cared about the engineers were always clumsy. They come in and say reboot. And now all of a sudden, what are you doing at home? Oh, I guess I'll just reboot it.
Hit the old idiot button.
Yeah.
When I got fired, I called Matt and he said, holy shit, I hope Denny's is hiring. So this is all bullshit. Like he's trying to come off like some guy that really helps out the industry. It's not. He told me to go get a job at Denny's. That's what he told me.
What he said.
Yes, he did. He said,
learn how to make grand slams.
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
Brush up your short order chef skills, dude.
You crack an egg.
Did you guys work together in Winnipeg?
No, we missed.
I followed him.
You followed him.
He left for Edmonton, and then I got his job and his cell phone right after. You should see. I've got a bunch of messages for you still.
Do you really? Did you get any? Did you see any nudes? Did he take any pictures of himself at all on that old phone? Did you get any? No.
At the time, it was like a Palm Pilot.
Oh, so you couldn't really do that.
Yeah. Did I have a? Yeah, I actually had a Palm Pilot. And then I got a BlackBerry when I came to Edmonton. I love that BlackBerry. I could type 40 words a minute on that fucking thing.
Yeah, everybody misses the Blackberries. We're just dating ourselves now. But you guys in Edmonton together. So you live in Edmonton still, right, Matt? Like that's hometown for you.
Winnipeg.
I'm Winnipeg.
I'm Winnipeg, yeah.
Right. So you're in Winnipeg. Locke was in Winnipeg. He moves to Edmonton. You guys have been out west. I've lived out west. I've been to Winnipeg. And there's been this growing like weirdness when it comes to bad PR about that beautiful city, which I believe is Winnipeg is French for the Queen City. Is that correct? Something like that? No,
I think that's Regina, the Queen City.
Regina, I think you're getting your
no.
Queens
It's like
mixed up.
It's Latin for the City of Champions or something, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
is that correct?
that's Edmonton.
Okay. Anyway, Winnipeg's in the dead middle of Canada. It's in a province called Manitoba. For everybody that's unaware of it, it has an NHL team and former NHLers. The second their season is their careers are done, they open up about their least favorite places all the time. Winnipeg is at the top of the list with a bullet, to the point where Mark Methot, former NHLer, he's now retired 37-year-old, slagged Winnipeg, and the Winnipeg Sun, the local newspaper, took umbrage with it.
Which is written in Toronto.
Retired NHLer Mark Methot, latest to slag Winnipeg. And the article talks about how Methot took a swipe, retired defenseman, knows how to dish out, says the occasional old school hip check over his 13-year career, delivered a low blow to Winnipeg in a Monday Twitter post. Part-time TV analyst for the Senators home games. Listen, I've been to Ottawa too. It's not that great of a shake. Methot provided in-depth analysis of the visiting team hotel, the restaurant scene, the downtown general, of course, the weather. Quote, worst hotel in the NHL, the Fairmont in Winnipeg. His tweet began, paper-thin walls, very loud doors, bed sheets that zap upon entry, shit weather, almost no nearby restaurants. Tough scene, he says. Then they go on and get a comment from Paul Maurice, and Paul Maurice was like, hey, you know what? That guy's kind of a pussy, he says. This guy's complaining about his Frappuccino in the wrong hotel. And at the end of it, they got into Mark Methot. Mark Methot doubled down. He said, I can see that I've riled up a lot of people with this post. He said, I'd like to take the time to apologize for forgetting to mention another thing. 99% of players, 99.9% of players have Winnipeg on their no trade list. Have a great day. Now, listen, I've been to Winnipeg. I'm going to reserve judgment on saying whether or not I like Winnipeg or not, because I haven't spent enough time in Winnipeg to go, this is a fucking great city. You live in Winnipeg. Why are they now suddenly, because I've never seen them defend their city before like this, because it's like, I think it's one of the most violent cities in Canada, but at the same time, beautiful people there. I've known lots of friends that live in Winnipeg, great music scene in Winnipeg, really multicultural to some extent if you're talking about white Europeans in Winnipeg. So what is it about Winnipeg that like, why are they getting their dander up now? What's the deal?
Well, can we start with the tweet for a sec? So
yes,
Mark posted the tweet, and I think he retweeted it from a picture of somebody else that he was following. And the picture was of Portage in Maine, and it was taken from the Fairmont Hotel. And Mark's tweet was only about the hotel. And he's bang on about the Fairmont Hotel. All that checks out. The walls are thin. It's full of static electricity. It hasn't been upgraded. It needs some more upgrades. But it seems that when you get sent to Winnipeg, you get put there or you get put at the Renaissance, which is right beside the hockey arena. I can't remember what this week. It's Canada Life Center. It's now called.
They put me in a hotel across from Polo Park. What the hell was that dive?
Like, that was the Clarion. The Clarion.
I had to lift yellow tape.
Yeah.
To get in and out. Yeah. Yeah.
The picture, by the way, is of Portage in Maine. Yeah. And Portage in Maine is the crossroads of Canada. Mm-hmm. You can't, it is, it really sums up Winnipeg's downtown, and Winnipeg's downtown is horrible. It is horrendous. Yeah. When the sun goes down, the place turns into a thriller video. There are zombies walking all over the place who accost you, yell at you. And it's not safe. I'm telling you, there are moments when I was on my way to the hockey game, and I stood at the corner of Ellis and Donald, and we're not going to be crossing here. We're going to be crossing somewhere else. Yeah. That's just the vibe that is given off. And the problem with Winnipeg and downtown is there's not enough Winnipeggers who are down there. It is not frequented. Unless there's a hockey game, it is very scant and there's nothing going on. Bad things will happen when that happens. If you want good things to happen, you have to populate it with people so that when you're walking through, a square in, anywhere, it could be in Canada, it could be in Barcelona, it could be in Denmark, it could be in London, it could be Times Square. There's less of a chance something bad is going to happen when people are there. And the problem with downtown Winnipeg is that there's rarely anybody there. And if you look at that picture of Portage in Maine, it is really sort of the central part of the problem of the city. You can't cross the street. There's no pedestrians. It is essentially the meeting of the Trans-Canada Highway, or at least what was. It's now the perimeter. But it's where two highways meet. Who has two 8-lane highways running through the very center of town?
Winnipeg.
Right, exactly. So, and by the way, when the game is over, everybody leaves because there are no restaurants down there. Okay, there's Highs and there's
Moxie's.
Like another place. And Moxie's is actually out of there now, but there's a couple across the street.
They took Moxie's out of the phone.
Isn't Earl's there? Earl's down at the Forks? Is that
Earl's is over on Main Street.
Okay.
But all of that is not, it's not near. Like, you'd think that if you had a building that had 15,000 people in it, 50, 60 times a year, if you add in the concerts, that there would be a restaurant scene. And there's not. Here's what happened to I went to the restaurant across the street in the Alt Hotel. And at 7:00, the waitress said, "Well, that's it. We settled up. I'm done for the night." "What do you mean you're done?" She goes, "Well, I'm going home." In fact, most of the servers are going home because the only time we're busy is between 5 and 7 before the game on a Friday night. And that's how it operates. People do not stay downtown. If you put 8-lane highways leading out of town, people are going to use it and they are going to leave town. And so this is why downtown Winnipeg looks so bad. And there is no initiative in place to fix it. There's no grand ideas. And there's a lot of people who, frankly, don't care. And I think when they think about Winnipeg, I think about where you lived, Locke. I think you lived down in the White Ridge area. Yeah. And it's very suburban. It's away from the city. It's out. And I think
but it's
a lot
convenient.
Yeah, you know what? But you need a car. And a lot of people drive by themselves in the car. There's no, the bus.
It's a car city.
Yeah, the bus routes go nowhere.
It's not a transit city.
The average number of people on a bus in Winnipeg is 7. 7. So they're running buses for 7. And then now they're talking we should get electric buses. You don't need electric buses. You need to get people on the bus you have now. Like, so the people who run this place, I'm sorry. I don't know what they by the way, nobody gets voted out, which is crazy because I think when it comes to change,
Matt.
Well,
we don't need to go that route.
But
it's such a small percentage of people that vote in the civic elections, and they pander to that group We got the same problem happening in Edmonton. I don't want to get bogged down with it because it drives Dean crazy, because then I'll get into bike lanes.
Municipal politics, yeah, might be the most boring fucking shit on the planet. Every time someone's like, let's talk about my town councilor, I'm like, let's not ever talk about your town councilor or who's been in town council for the longest. But to Matt's point, Locke, you've lived there for a long time. And if you've been downtown and you understand Portage and Main, it's all blocked off by medians. It's like a big cement fucking maze, right? But you can never go across the street. You have to figure out a different way, and you got to walk. But
you got to go. You got to go below the ground.
Yeah,
and you should check out what's down there, because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of much. Okay, but somebody said, oh, if we're gonna go there, I'm gonna have to go below ground. Ooh, no.
Okay, well, so can I?
Yeah, please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so what happened for me was I ended up very early on in my career. It was my third job. I took a music director's position in Winnipeg, and it came with some on-air shifts. After a very short period of time, they threw me on full-time on the air, and then I was assistant program director. 3 years in, they gave me the program director's role. I was in Winnipeg as a program director for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. I came to Edmonton. I was in Winnipeg just shy of 6 years. It's the longest I had ever lived anywhere in my life up until that time. And when we were there, it was my salad years. I loved that station. We had a great group. We had some great talent. We were on our own. We never got any support whatsoever from chorus. We would get our promotion dollars, and the boss would go, don't spend it, don't spend it, don't spend it. They're just going to ask for it back, and then I'm going to have to try to find it. So you can't spend it. It's just in an account. And I'm like, oh, that's healthy. And then 3 months later, somebody's ratings would tank. Derringer's ratings would tank by a half a share point, and everybody would shit their pants in Toronto, and they'd take all our money. So we were on our own. We were like completely isolated and on an island, and we kicked ass. It was so liberating, because we learned how to program a radio station with next to zero support. And we did it by being creative, having fun, and getting out and involved in the community. And man, that city is full of great fucking people. It really is. And I loved it there. We had a good group of friends. It was hard to leave Winnipeg. I'm not going to lie. I outgrew it very quickly, and I knew I had to take that next step. And so I don't have any regrets leaving. Now, when I got to Edmonton, quick story. Ironically,
it's not going to be a quick story. So just don't say that. Just tell the story.
It's going to be quick.
All right.
My daughter got the attention of the Winnipeg Royal Ballet like a year and a half, 2 years after, ironically, when we went to Edmonton, and we sent her back. Now, I've got a 12. Well, she turned 13. She was 12 when she first went. Within a couple of months, she was 13. I have a 13-year-old living by herself in residence at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet in downtown Winnipeg. She was there for 8 years before she went to Europe, and she danced for a couple of different companies in Europe. We would go back all the time. My wife way more than me, but we were in Winnipeg constantly after she was to go see her dance, to check up on her. Like, it was constant. And I watched the decline of that city over those years, and it's sad. There's garbage everywhere.
The homeless situation there is insane, isn't it? Yeah.
Fucking hand. I was walking with a friend of mine, complaining about walking downtown Winnipeg. And we were going to have a bite to eat, and we were meeting some friends to go see Riley dance. And as I'm walking along with this friend of mine that I used to know in Winnipeg, Kevin, he's like, yeah, I work down here. It's just awful, blah, blah, blah. And I look out of the corner of my eye, and there's a homeless guy taking a shit in a planter right fucking downtown in the business section of Winnipeg.
Well, I think
they have done nothing to clean up that city. It's embarrassing. Anybody and everybody that is involved in making that city what it is should be mortified about where it's at.
I have a question.
And that's just that. I hate to be that frank, because you talk to anybody from Winnipeg and they'll
it's
defend
balanced.
Winnipeg.
That's balanced.
They'll defend Winnipeg, and they should from the perspective of the people. But the people you guys have put in charge of that city have messed it up. It is disgusting, and people should be ashamed. They should be ashamed that it's gotten to where it is.
Yeah, so a lot of people are afraid of change. Winnipeg has this afraid of change thing, so they don't vote anybody out because they're like, we could change it, but I think everything is okay.
Everything's right. Did Hal get in?
And then no, Hal did not get in.
You got to be kidding me.
No, exactly. So he ran in my ward. I helped him out a little bit on the campaign. He did very well. There were about 16,000 votes total, and he got 6,000, and Evan Duncan, who he ran against, got 9,000. The truth of the matter is Evan had better political support along the way, and there's stuff that goes on that really does sort of elevate people up to get people into office. I think Hal would probably back that up. Hal's a very strong name, but Hal, conservative. He's sort of what he wasn't in with the Conservatives. You can bet the NDP wouldn't really like him anyway. But in order to, again, it's trying to get that sort of change to happen from a grassroots level, and it takes an awful lot of effort and an awful lot of momentum in order for that to happen. But you're bang on, Locke. I'll tell you, we ran that radio station. We both worked at Power 97. We got zero budget. A lot of stations would get $50,000 a year, and when I got there, Locke had, there was no budget. In fact, there was a little bit of rescue money after Locke went. I think they gave us like a bus, which would carry 7 people on it, but they bannered the entire bus, and it ran around the city, and that was going to be our marketing budget for this one particular fall. I think that was like my welcome bonus was that budget. I think
congratulations.
That's what I got in the end. But it is, and the city has fallen. There's no plan in place to fix it. The root cause of a lot of the things that we're talking about is poverty. And a lot of people have, there's a lot of poverty that goes on in the city, and a lot of homeless. And
I got a question.
Ain't nobody doing much about it.
Well, here's the question then. So Mark Mathot just kind of reinforces what 30 other NHLers have said over the past year.
Yeah.
You've reinforced it. Lachlan's reinforced it. Why the fuck are people defending it? Why don't you just turn your attention as a city to the fucking city council and go, hey, assholes, this place is a shit dump. We need to fix it. We'd like to be able to walk across the street and not get mugged or sexually assaulted trying to get into the MTS Center or whatever the fuck it's called this week.
So Winnipeg because Winnipeg is so far removed from anything else. So if you're in Ottawa, it's Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Kitchener. There's
Mathot's right, by the way. He's right. It's a shithole.
He's right.
It's fucking very difficult to live there. NHL players hate it there. That's why so many want to get out, and the ones that are still there sign 1-year deals.
I have a theory on the NHL thing.
Okay, let Cundill
too.
finish, and then we'll go to you. Go ahead, Cundill. Sorry.
So when you look at Winnipeg and the downtown core, and nobody really wanting to fix it, it sort of spreads itself sort of across the city. And then when it comes to, what Mark points out, the people here don't really care what somebody in Calgary thinks about their city. Yeah, it's fine. We love it. Right. But then when somebody from outside sort of criticizes it, it's kind of like they defend it all of a sudden. They kind of flip sides. They kind of know it, but it's like you're pointing out your alcoholic uncle's faults. And now he's getting a little bit, I know I've got a problem. I just haven't been able to fix it yet. I think also when you look at Winnipeg and when it comes to NHL players and trades, and I'll start with my theory and see if you can continue it, Locke. And that's, I don't think any hockey player wants to leave behind, wives or girlfriends and children for half the year in a snowy city that is cold and a whole bunch of whatnot. By the way, Winnipeg isn't the only one with the no trade, clauses. I think this is why a Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup in 25, 30 years. But I think Edmonton and Calgary are also on that list.
Toronto's on the list for a different reason, just because of the pressure of dealing with the media in that city.
It is.
Right?
Toronto and Montreal.
Montreal has a similar issue that Toronto has.
Different issues, but same result, which is like, no, I don't want to go to that city, right? I don't want to go to that city. The tax situation you brought up, I can make way more money. I can stay out of the public eye. It's warm in Phoenix. What? His former NHLer used to play for the Jets. We used to have him on the podcast for a long period of time. His name was Sean Mathias. Great guy, really good guy. And he took us through what it was like to actually be in Winnipeg. He's like, in the winter, He's like, it's not light out until like 9. Then it gets like dark again at 3.
4.
And generally
4,
speaking, you get back from a road trip. You'll sleep until 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll make your way down to the rink. You're just living in perpetual darkness. Like that's he just that's and to go and find a place to go and have a good meal after. He's like few and far between. So he said a lot of those guys, what they would do is they go back to their hotel rooms, drink themselves to sleep, get up and do it again the next day. He's like, there are a lot of guys on that team that did that. He did that. And he's like, fuck, I need to leave. I can't be here anymore. I can't play in the NHL if this is my option. Serious. Like he said that to me verbatim.
But I will say this. I will defend the restaurant scene. At least when I was there, it might have taken a bit of a hit with COVID, but there was always a real strong restaurant scene. You had to do your work and find it. But there's some great spots to eat in Winnipeg. There's a really strong Greek culture. I think
Greek culture. There's a ton of
really
Jewish, important pockets.
Really strong Jewish foundation in just over the bridge there, and they've got money and they've thrown it at. There was one restaurant I went to that was owned by a long standing Jewish family from Winnipeg. I can't remember the name of it. In an old house right over the bridge.
It's 529.
Oh, so fucking good. Oh my God. Great
steakhouse.
Unbelievable steakhouse. Here's another problem with the NHL. And a lot of people that haven't been in Winnipeg might not know this. I mean, there's a lot of frustration with the travel because they got to fly into Mini and then bus in. Like someday Winnipeg's going to get an airport.
That's not true. While that's going on too, we're talking about restaurants. Yeah, and so listen, if you're from Winnipeg, I feel you, but you're going to have to be okay with the bricks that people are throwing at you because it is what it is. Your city is exactly what it is. And Mark Bethot was not wrong. While that's going on in Winnipeg, Ontario announced, guys, when are you coming out? I'm going to take you guys, make a reservation for 3 at a local 7-Eleven. We're going to get fucking hammered. I don't know if you saw this.
We're way ahead of you.
In Ontario, they Doug Ford just allowed beer and wine, not just to be sold in a 7-Eleven, but to be consumed in a 7-Eleven by a 7-Eleven waitress or waiter.
We have 4. Hold on. No, we have 7. We have 7 7-Elevens in Edmonton now that you can buy beer at.
That you sit down at, like you can, like, because they've cordoned this off.
They don't have tables like that. They have.
Oh, dude, this is high class. This is a fucking nice 7-Eleven. It's in Chatham, Ontario. Sorry, Leamington, Ontario, just outside of Windsor. And they've been the 7-Eleven group of companies. Couche-Tard, I believe, is the name of the company. They've been canvassing and asking every premier across the province where they own these restaurants. Hey, listen, we just want to be able to serve alcohol in the restaurant. So when someone comes in for, a tank of gas and a 3-hour ride home, we want to be able to serve them some really hot taquitos and some of those rotisserie hot dogs that have been on the thing with a really nice box of wine at their table. And somehow the province of Ontario was like, you know what? That's a fucking great idea. Let's turn all these 7-Elevens into restaurants where people can literally go in and pretend a convenience store, Matt, is an actual restaurant just for the convenience of getting absolutely shit tanked at a convenience store. I think it's awesome.
What is with Doug Ford? Everything comes back to beer.
Everything.
Everything.
Because he knows. He knows it's like the fastest way to any rural man's heart where they have these 7-Elevens. The fastest way to it is to give them as much alcohol as humanly possible and take away as many rules around getting drunk as humanly possible. He knows that drunk Ontario is a happier Ontario. I think it's a great idea.
You have to privatize Manitoba, you and Ontario. It's awesome. I can buy liquor anywhere.
24 hours a day?
24 hours. It doesn't matter. It's available all over the place.
Isn't that fucking unbelievable?
You can't drive more than 3 minutes in a vehicle in Edmonton without seeing a liquor store. And I'm not kidding. Anybody that lives here knows exactly what I'm talking about. You guys have a lot of pot stores. Imagine Ontario's pot stores, every single one of them having a liquor store beside it. The fact that they'd have allowed the legalization of marijuana in Canada and then privatized that industry in Ontario and then they haven't done it for alcohol is bizarre to me.
Well, I think they make like $400 billion a year in alcohol. That adds to the bottom line here in the province of Ontario. I'm exaggerating. It's like $4.5 billion a year that gets added to the province's bottom line. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to like privatize this, like quietly, just kind of like, we'll do a couple stores here. You can literally now get alcohol, beer, wine in pretty much any convenience, any grocery store that's licensed, meaning like Loblaws. If you're buddies with Doug Ford, like if you donated and you own grocery stores or supply chains, you can actually get a liquor license pretty much anywhere. It doesn't really matter where it is. But Winnipeg's not the same. Just another reason not to move there, I guess, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, the provincial government loves their liquor and lotteries windfall. They're clearly not spending it on fixing downtown. But, there's a lot of money involved. But when I look at 7-Eleven and I think of Winnipeg, I mean, you can't put alcohol in there. It won't sell because the only thing anybody ever buys there is a Slurpee. And it's -40 outside and people are still walking out with Slurpees. And it's the Slurpee capital of Canada.
You can't buy alcohol. Like, is alcohol provincially mandated in Winnipeg as well?
Yeah.
What do they have? We have LCBOs here. What do you guys have?
MLCC, Manitoba Liquor
and
Control
Commission.
In Manitoba, the hours are weird too. Like I remember when I was there, they increased it, but I remember there was a point when I was there when it was like, I might be exaggerating, Matt, but correct me if I'm wrong. Liquor stores were like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Like it was fucking weird that.
The Conservatives came in and opened it up a number of years ago. So we're, now the hours are a little more flexible than they once were. But I'll tell you something, going back to a little bit about Winnipeg and crime, this appeared in the last couple of, about 2 years ago. There were a lot of break-ins. Actually, they weren't even break-ins because the store was open. People would just walk in. Gangs of about 4 or 5 kids would go in, grab a few bottles of liquor and just walk out. And security guards would just stand there and do nothing. And they're like, yeah, I've been told to do nothing. And so the provincial government's solution to that was to install ID. And there's now a security guard. You have to show your provincial ID, which is your driver's license. You can show 2 pieces of federal ID if you want. They will unlock the doors and you will walk in. It is that secure. You cannot bring somebody below 18 in with you. So you got to abandon your child in the car while you go to pick up your bottle of whatnot. And then you can go in. It's insane to think that was the solution for the crime that was taking place, was to go and to create this sort of like locked door area where somebody will look and examine your card.
They've done similar things in Edmonton. We have similar issues here with crime, and they've done like locked doors and IDs and things like that. Liquor stores in particular get robbed quite a bit here in Edmonton. One of the other issues, and this is something that probably will not get talked a lot about.
Quick question. Do they have Winnipeg, in Alberta though, do they have liquor store, pot store combos? Do they have any stores that sell both? You got to separate them?
You can buy weed beer, like marijuana beer or whatever, but you can't buy Budweiser in a
you can't go in, grab a case of Budweiser, grab like 14 grams of Alaskan Thunderfuck and have a great weekend. You can't do
Nova
that.
Scotia, you can.
You can for real? They sell
Nova Scotia, I believe, can't.
Nova Scotia so much.
That's coming soon.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So here's another thing with Winnipeg, and this is something that not a lot of people talk about. But what happens in Manitoba is you've got a centralization of the population on the south end in Winnipeg. How many people in Winnipeg? 1 point something million now.
800,000.
800. It's not even at a million yet.
No.
And then you've got a ton of small, very small communities. Nothing even remotely touches the size of Winnipeg, and it's all north. And you have a lot of reservations. And what ends up happening with the reservations quite often is if they've got a bad apple, they will excommunicate them. They will kick them out, and they work their way to Winnipeg. So what has happened over the years, and this is not something that I'm making up, this is something that people know about. And actually, I've been told by the Indigenous community that it happens. If you've got somebody that's causing a lot of problems on the reservation, they will get removed. Where do they go? They go to Winnipeg, right? Where there is some connection with social services, and they might be able to get a fresh start. So that's a big part of the homeless situation in Winnipeg. It's not the bulk of it, but it's a chunk of it. And I don't know and again, we have conversations all the time in every city about homelessness, and I don't know what the answer is. We had somebody living in the bushes outside of our building a couple years ago, and no one was saying anything or doing anything. And we were having a conversation in the building one day, and I said, well, maybe we should call somebody to see if they were living in the bush right outside of our building, and they were there all the time. And we called, and I got somebody on the phone from, I'm trying to remember the organization. It wasn't the Mustard Seed, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And they were saying it's such a complicated issue. We'll send somebody, but we can't make any promises that we'll be able to get that person to decide to move to a more feasible situation, because it's not always drugs. It's not always mental illness. Sometimes it's, it can be depression related. They might not even be on anything at all. They just lost their job, lost their wife, their dad died, their mom died. You don't know what this person's situation is, and you don't know what led them to where they are at that point. And sometimes they have a pet, and the pet isn't allowed in a situation, and they're not giving up their pet. Sometimes they're not allowed to take their possessions, what they might have, what they might have, into a situation that would give them warmth or shelter or whatever. And so they choose to, in minus 35, I drove into work today. It was minus 32, minus 41 with the wind chill. And there's people in our city fucking living outside in the river valley right now. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they cope. Right. And I don't know what you can't just go offer him a meal. That's not going to change his life. You can't, you know what I mean? There's just so many question marks, and nobody's figured it out yet. They're spending they're throwing a ton of money at housing in Edmonton, but then a lot of these housing situations in Edmonton have these rules we're talking about. Like, if it is a drug problem, you got to create a safe space for these people to keep that up. You can't just go cold fucking turkey off of heroin, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many layers to this.
Yeah, it's not just about getting people a place to live, right? You got to be willing to work with the person. The person's got to be willing to work with you. There's psychopathy involved. There's addiction involved. There's withdrawal involved. There's DTs. There's all kinds of different issues that people deal with. And every city's, basically the same. Matt, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, thought you were going to hop in there. You were going to say something. You were going to say something?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's really hard to watch. And again, like I said, they're dealing with it not just in Edmonton, not in Winnipeg. They're dealing with it in Toronto. My wife takes the LRT, and there's an underground section, and we just moved to this area. And shortly after she started going to work on the LRT here, we were having dinner one night, and she goes, "Wow, I can't believe how many people are living underground." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, they're living there." She's like, "They're openly doing drugs in our version of the subway in Edmonton, right there in front of people." And it's crazy.
The stands to reason is, if you're going to live outside when it's minus 40, you're not really going to care. Like, if you're probably going to be okay freebasing coke in front of people as they walk by.
Yep.
Right.
A lot of meth,
crack or math or whatever the situation is. Yeah, it's incredibly sad. And it
and
comes down to it, right?
I know we're paying a lot of government money to try to solve these problems, but Locke is exactly right. Where does it go? What is happening to it? And there's so many different layers with so many different issues, and why people, wind up in a very difficult situation. A lot of it does start with poverty, but it could also be criminal activity. It could also be, people were trying to get their lives together. I get the feeling that this idea of trying to, get your life back in order feels like such an uphill climb. And somewhere in here, there is a missing component. Where's the money going? Why do we not see more positive success stories coming out of this? And why does it appear to be getting worse? I'd like to say that, but it is getting worse. our downtowns feel quite, feel quite rotten in the core when you take a walk through them. And the worst thing is what just Locke said. You go walking through, the LRT, or you go through the subway and you see someone shooting up and you just walk past it because that becomes your norm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. That being the norm and it not being cool. And it kind of goes back to what Mark Mathot said, which everybody said, is that Winnipeg's got a Winnipeg problem, right? I mean, you and I talk about it privately all the time. Who was it? The mayor? There's like the mayor-elect was like riding around. This is a great story. When she was trying to become the mayor of Winnipeg, she's driving around in an RV, like a rented campaign RV. And they parked it for the night, and someone came and stole the catalytic converter from it. Or is that what I'm?
Yeah. Shout out to Roundabout Carey, who was running, and yeah, her catalytic converter was stolen from her really super cool bus. And I sit there and go, "You see?" But we all treated it as normal. It happens like every night. So
yeah,
I didn't even bat an eye. You said that to me. I'm like, that's Winnipeg. How you doing, Matt? All right, everything good.
They caught two guys. You're gonna love this story. They caught two guys, at the airport, in the airport parking, at 10 o'clock in the morning last week, on like a Wednesday. Security caught two guys underneath of a vehicle trying to get. They always rip off the Hyundais, eh? Because there's something about the catalytic converters in a Hyundai that make them more valuable. I don't know. They use more metal or something. So if you've got a Santa Fe, man, you're a mark. So guys are literally broad daylight here in Edmonton, middle of winter. Two guys are literally underneath of a vehicle at the airport.
We should maybe get into stealing catalytic converters if people are willing to do that at -40. It's got to be worth a lot of money.
I do want to say something super, super nice about Winnipeg in the summertime. It is the best summer. It is awesome here.
Yeah, but it's 2 months.
It's actually, well, all right, that's true. But it's still really awesome when summer is on.
Winnipeg has a lot of beautiful architecture. It has a lot of unbelievable landscapes. It really does. And the Fork's gorgeous. They have let it go. It really has. And again, I don't know the ins and outs politically or money wise or what's going on in that city. But every year I'd go back and I would point it out to my wife. I'm like, it's getting worse. It's like, what's wrong? Like this, do they not care? They're boarding up buildings. And this was before COVID. Like it really took a downturn in the last, I'd say 10, 15 years when I was going back. I haven't been back for a couple years. My daughter left. And she went to Europe, and we haven't been back since. I don't think, not since she left. But I haven't heard too many positive things.
And I've been here since you left, obviously, because I took over after you. I've been here 15 years. It has gotten so much worse.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I go, why do we put up with I thought things were supposed to get better. Yeah, I thought things were supposed to get better and they were improved. But some of the nice qualities about the city that a lot of people talk about, which might be the summer or the tree canopy, some really, really nice neighborhoods and the wonderful people that live here. All these things remain the same. Yet, right at the core, right at Portage and Main, and sort of extending outwards a little bit, it just gets worse.
There's a guy shitting in a potted plant right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, once again, I know you looked at that like it was a bad thing. I'm like, what a nice homeless guy. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to shit on the road today or the sidewalk. I'm going to shit in this potted plant. I'm going to provide some fertilizer. Now I'm going to get it out everybody's way.
Thanks.
That is a very thoughtful homeless person taking a dump in a planter.
You're right.
I know.
I remember being wildly concerned when I lived in Winnipeg because my wife and I decided that was it. We're not having any more kids. So we had the conversation about Locke getting the boys snipped. And I'm like, Winnipeg? Like, I don't want to do it here. Anybody with money or means doesn't stay here. Like,
did you get a vasectomy in Winnipeg?
Who am I getting? And it's true. Like Matt'll attest to this. If you go visit a doctor's office in Winnipeg for anything, you'll be in a waiting room. There'll be 127 people in there because it's one of 3 doctors in the entire fucking province.
Well, because if you're a doctor and you got a choice of where to live and practice, it's not going to be in Winnipeg unless you're fucking from Winnipeg or you love Winnipeg for some strange reason, right?
I literally got a vasectomy from a guy that had an office in a strip mall next to a Value Village.
In Winnipeg?
in
bricks?
Winnipeg.
Did he use a couple bricks? Was that the process?
No, but he was still doing it the old way. Like it looked like he was soldering something down there. Like there was smoke.
Have you had a vasectomy, Matt? Ever?
Yeah, in Winnipeg.
In Winnipeg, I got mine in Toronto, so mine was painless, obviously, and I had a real doctor do it. But nothing can prepare you when you see that smoke rising from your midsection. Nothing. It's cauterizing your vas deferens. But when you see the smoke rising, and you're like, "Is my junk on fire?" That's one of the most disconcerting moments of a man's life if you've gotten a vasectomy. Why am I
just thought
smoking?
It was a Winnipeg thing that he was down there with soldering gear.
I actually had that successfully removed from my memory, but thanks for bringing it all back.
Yeah,
guys.
you're welcome. No.
Yeah,
when you're sitting there, right, and you see this poof of smoke come up, it comes up twice because they got to solder both ends of the vas deferens, right? So you get one end here, bang, bang, you're poof, and then bang, bang, and you're like, are my nuts okay? Are my balls okay, sir? I asked my buddy Tom. He's my vasectomy guy. He's a urologist friend of mine.
I'd never get a friend to do that.
Tom, we were hammered the night before too. I'm like, hey, what's going on down there? He's like, nothing. I'm like, well, that's something. I'm seeing smoke rise from my midsection. But there's something going on there. He goes, we're cauterizing a couple of tubes. Relax, Dino. And I'm like, all right, there you go. But I had mine done in Toronto. Anyway, Matt, thanks for doing this, dude. Thanks for weighing in on Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us. I want to remind everybody that if you are a budding podcaster, if you are coming out of the industry, speaking of traditional media, and you are looking to start your own podcast, this gentleman right below me is the best in Canada at building podcasts. Sound Off Media is the name of his company, at Matt Cundill, soundoffmedia.com. If you go there, you will be able to get a hold of him. He's as good as it gets. We trust him with all of our business. You can trust him with all of your business, specifically if you're doing some podcasting yourself, you want to create something, or if you've been doing it for a while and you get no traction, you can't get paid. That's your guy right there. Matt Cundill, Sound Off. Thanks for doing this, bud.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Good to see you, Matt. Hey, I want to give you a heads up on this just in case you haven't heard, but we are going to be doing a documentary on this and the network and the sort of the ins and outs of podcasting versus traditional radio, and a real deep dive into this whole business. So we'll be leaning on you in the next 6 months or so.
So do it quickly, because I think sometime by 2024, podcasting will have taken over the live and local aspect from radio. Again, stuff changes every day.
Yeah, no, I know. And that it's a big part of the reason why we want to get it. We're at a pretty interesting stage right now in Canada with podcasting as a whole. Even take out what Dean's done here with the network, and it's an interesting conversation. And with the consolidation of traditional radio, it's really, really changing the landscape of how people consume media in this country, right? Because you're getting smaller and smaller budgets and tighter ships at traditional forms of media across the country. And there's a lot of really, really talented radio people that spent their entire careers now doing this full time.
You know, without even getting too deep into it, Bell got rid of a bunch of sports radio stations. Winnipeg, Hamilton, somewhere else.
Vancouver.
Yeah. So they got rid of those stations. And what did all those people do? They all went home and started YouTube channels. And now there's a whole sports media industry that has sort of grown straight from that.
I had a laugh. I'm watching that Welcome to Wrexham. It's brilliant. And I hate soccer. It's fucking so well done. And if you don't know what it is, it's Ryan Reynolds and this guy Rob McElhenney from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They bought this soccer team in Northern Wales, and they're doing a documentary about it. There's 18 episodes, and I'm right at the end, and they cut to a scene with a couple of guys sitting at a table doing a podcast. I just had a laugh.
Yeah. It's huge.
It's
I don't think people recognize, which is why I love having Matt on the show. And we've been threatening to talk about this kind of stuff in the podcast. And I'm sure we're going to do that at some point where we're going to be podcasting and we're going to be talking about, sorry, dude, in my coat. where we're going to be talking about podcasting, but it's literally eating traditional media alive. Video podcasting, audio podcasting. But you said something that interests me. You said in the next few years, live podcasting is going to usurp traditional media for that live programming, specifically radio and television.
Well, I think
it's not far. It's right.
Yeah, well,
here.
I think they're good. Yeah, so I had a great interview with Rob Greenlee, who is now at Podbean. For those who've got their podcasts up there, he's now the senior vice president of content and a bunch of other stuff. We had a great conversation. It's the brand new episode on the Sound Off podcast if you want to check it out. But we talk about podcasting 2.0. What's going to go in an RSS feed? Are you going to be able to send some cryptocurrency to support the show? And turns out, yeah, that actually already exists right now. And a lot of podcasters are moving in that direction. But also, can you put in like some tags like for live? And is this show live? Is it local? You'll be able to go and search out all the podcasts that are going to be talking about Edmonton and emanating from Edmonton. Ones that I mentioned live. So like live and local has really been the bread and butter of radio for a long time. And this is something that as technology improves is slowly going to be creeping into podcasting. So it's something I think everybody can be aware of. And there's lots to look forward to in 2023 in podcasting.
Yes, there is. I'm really looking forward to it. Matt Cundill, Sound Off Media, at Matt Cundill on Twitter is where you can follow him at Winnipeg. Thanks for doing this, dude. Great to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to you.
You didn't look too stressed out over the live thing this time, Matt.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go edit this right after you guys are done. Cut out all sorts of parts.
Please do. Thanks, brother. Great to see you.
You'll make it a 10-minute bit.
Go Matt Cundill, Sound Off Media. He's such a good dude. And he's right. He's right, dude. Like podcasting, video podcasting, live content like this is going to eat it up. It already is. In the United States, there's a lot of people in Canada don't realize. The 49th parallel, there's this content barrier, right? Not a lot. There are none. 49th, like Ryan Jesperson does a live one. He actually does a really good job out of Edmonton, I believe, is where Ryan Jesperson.
Ryan's out of Edmonton, yeah. He does a political sort of
oil and gas podcast, I call it. But he does a good job. Like he's fairly well represented, and he's fairly even keel, even though you can tell where he's coming at and how he's coming at things. But he's
had a couple. He's had a couple stumbles.
Has he? I don't know anything about him other than his digital stuff right now. Is he a lifelong Winnipeg guy?
Ryan Jesperson? No, he's a lifelong Edmontonian.
Edmonton guy, sorry.
Yeah. And he was a breakfast television guy who took the sort of the feature role on 630 Ched here, which is in the AM Monster. And I don't know, I think there's a story about his departure there. I don't care. But there always is. There's always something, right? And then he started his own, and he's had a couple of stumbles. He's doing really well, and I think he deserves any success that he has right now just based on that. But I think Ryan is the type of guy, as we are, that benefits from having somebody in your corner that will be honest with you about the things that you say.
Oh, yeah. James just climbed in. Apparently he called a staffer a monkey. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, there's that.
Oh, there's more?
There's a couple of other things. Yeah.
We've all made mistakes.
I don't know the specifics, and I don't care to. I just
tough
know
when you're doing a live show. It's all.
And I don't know what his story is.
No.
It is tough. But again, you and I do this. We keep each other honest.
Yeah.
There have been days where I've stepped over the line and you have, sometimes you do it live. Hey, Locke. Sometimes you do it with a nice phone call after the podcast.
Yeah.
I've done it, with you where I've called you, a couple of times and said, hey, we
want to fondle the business balls out there.
Should we have done that?
Fondle
we've
the
been
balls.
Burning the cross every day for 2 weeks now. Should we maybe just stop?
Hey, Dean, I remember when you said to me, because this is one of the rules of podcasting, it doesn't apply to radio. Radio, it's like, generally speaking, no one ever talks about religion or their issues with man-made religion. I've done months worth of shows on how much I fucking hate it all.
I know.
Months. And that's a public service to the human beings that we talk to. It's garbage. You don't want to follow religion. You want to follow philosophy. Fuck religion. Religion doesn't matter.
Can
but
I
on the
say
radio,
this?
you can't ever talk about religion because the second you do, some religious boss that you have will go, hey, what are you doing? That's my religion. And you're like, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to a million other people who actually ate that shit up. And he's like, stop, because my reverend's going to get upset with me and I'm going to have some splaining to do down at church youth group where I'm a sponsor for a whole bunch of young children. And you're like, I don't care. You asked me to do a job for a whole bunch of people. That's the problem with traditional media too, is that all those executives have relationships with people where it's like a fucking minefield, right? You can go ahead and say something. One day someone's going to march into your office and go, you know, the guy that you just sewered is my bank manager and I go to church with him. And you're like, no, but that should have zero bearing on me doing content for you because you've asked me to do this fucking job, right? So when you get into digital media and you can do this yourself, there's no one to upset. There's no one to service. There's no one to none of that. It's just you doing your stuff.
I think there is. I think you're still accountable to an audience. And I think
that's all you're accountable to. You're not accountable to tubing content on behalf of one person because that might give them a hard time at a meeting or church youth group or bowling night. Because the guy that you talked about knew your general manager or your boss. Like, that's what content is in this country. It's fucking gross.
It does actually.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I think we have way bigger issues now just based on the ownership structure in Canada and the pressure on people to do more with less, I think, is the bigger issue for mainstream media right now than, say, my kid's best friend's father owns the Dairy Queen, right? Like, and you just shit all over
Dairy Queen,
the Blizzard, right? Like, you can't do that. Right? I think there's bigger issues than that.
I know one shit's on Blizzard, by the way. It's
can I say this though?
In the world.
Yeah, it's an awesome treat. I was just using that as an example.
Yeah, don't.
Here's the thing that I think we need to be aware of when you're dealing with any sort of structured belief system. And I've said this countless times. I truly believe that individuals need something to believe in. We gravitate towards it. Your whole life, you're looking for it. Whether you're religious or not, there's probably things that you've done in your time to try to bolster up how you want to live your life, right? And so we're all, to a certain extent, we're searchers, right? You find it with friends or with content, entertainment that you consume, or a book, or somebody suggested an exercise program, or we all search out these communities and structure. We all want to have answers to things. And I think the reason why it can get you into trouble is if some people are just, I'm trying to find a nice way of saying this, and I don't think there is. Some people are just pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And when they find something to answer some of these questions or to let them off the hook for certain things, they don't get better.
No.
Right? And I unfortunately, and you're not this friend, but I had a friend that I will never talk to ever again in my life. And it was my closest friend that I've had, and this happened recently, is a big stoic. And I've known this about him, but is also a raging asshole.
Oh, then he's not a stoic.
So his interpretation of Stoicism, I think, and this is just outside looking in, gave him an excuse, because nothing really matters and no one should care about anything. Gave him an excuse to be an even bigger asshole.
Yeah, that's not it.
And the guy is going to die alone with no friends or family that ever talks to him.
His choice.
And exactly, I'm just saying there's a danger in how you use whatever it is that you're searching for, especially if you're using it as a shield for being a dick. And I think that's what we run into.
Yeah, dude, everybody like it. First of all, let me just deal with the Stoicism stuff. As a practicing Stoic and someone who really tries hard to understand what it means to live with virtue, what courage is, what values are, what principles are, the decisions you make on a daily basis will always navigate and give you the environment that you're in. Like they will always dictate how you are. People call it karma. It's not karma. It's just, are you making good decisions on a daily basis in your best interest? Number one. Number two, Stoicism does not teach people to not give a fuck about anything at all. Quite the opposite. It teaches you to give a shit about things because it's really important that you're part of a societal solution. Your job is to respond well. Now, responding well sometimes means taking emotion out of situations where it doesn't need to be there, specifically with anger, right? So the whole idea behind Stoicism is to help you respond to situations where most people lose their fucking minds and give all their shit up, and be conductive and productive in those environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way your friend is using it means he's a fucking idiot. He's just a moron.
Maybe he just hasn't got to the later chapters.
He did. No, it's an encompassing thing. It's like the laws of the universe apply to every single person, and it doesn't change just because you decided that, I'm gonna engage with this philosophy that tells me not to care. It tells you to care. It just tells you not to care about things you can't change, right? It tells you have to care. It says being of good character and acts for the common good are the only fruit in this life. That's really important to understand. Is that if you're a good person, it's going to dictate how your life goes and everything that is around you. So when someone says they're a Stoic or they practice Stoic philosophy and it's enabled them not to give a fuck, they've weaponized it, manipulated it so that they could use it to be a bigger asshole. That's absolutely not the way it's supposed to go.
That's my sense of the situation that he's in right now.
Yeah,
just
totally.
And again, and that's probably what my trepidation when we have a conversation about Stoicism, because I don't know much about it. Plus, I'd like to say this out loud. I'm well aware of my role in the disintegration of my friendship with my longest friend. And I did play a large part in it.
I feel like we should have done, like, the last half of this podcast should have been like a therapy session.
I don't need therapy.
Well, we were just talking about podcasting. We were talking about podcasting, and then you took it into, I just lost my best friend to Stoicism.
This happened quite some time ago, and I don't necessarily talk about it because I'm still in shock over the whole situation. But it happened quite some time ago.
Can I just brass
control it? And I'm
exactly. Let me take you through a little Stoic exercise. Let me help you out with this. I love doing it. Is
this going to annoy me?
Probably. Every single time something happens to you that you don't like, think about why you don't like it. Think about it, right? Think about why you have a visceral physical reaction to not getting your way. Think about it. When it happens, think about it. I didn't get my way. Now I'm triggered. Why? What are you triggered for? And then I want you to watch the response. Allow your fucking nervous system to do the work of being the asshole. Allow your cognitive bias to trigger you. And then watch how it cascades into bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. And then watch how much more shit you have to dig yourself out of when the fucking dust settles, right? A good practicing philosophy, a practicing Stoic, tries to get those things right the first time. Tries to not overreact, tries to respond well, tries to be constructive, and tries to grab smooth handles in those moments instead of rough handles. Acting with emotion, extreme emotion, because your brain's a fucking liar. Acting with emotion in a moment where you're triggered makes everything worse all the time. All the time. And your job in this life is to be good to yourself. It's not to be consistently triggered by things you can't control, because there's no point. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your emotional energy. So when people get upset by things that they don't control, that's why I don't care about Elon Musk, even though I will say this, big fan of this guy's tattoo. Huge fan of that guy's Elon Musk tattoo on his forehead. He really loves Elon Musk. Now, that guy and other people like him that love Elon Musk so much that they get tattoos, they want to be a part of something that they have no business in, right? They want to engage in conversations with people about how incredible he is. They want to help change the narrative about he is. Same thing with the political systems that we find ourselves into, federal, provincial. They want to tell everybody this is how it works. Guess what? It doesn't matter what your government does, you still cannot do anything to change it. So what will you do? Right. And we've spent the last 2 years watching people come out of the convoy, giving up their lives, their jobs, their careers. Why? What's the commonality there? The commonality is that these people all reacted emotionally, negatively, thinking that they were the hero of a story where they could effect some kind of change if they just yelled enough, or if they just acted like enough of a douchebag, or if they just quit their job, or if they took a stand and didn't get vaccinated. You will suffer the consequences of that response. Every response you have has a fucking consequence, a tax. So will you spend your time reacting emotionally to things you can't control, giving up your quality of life, destroying your nervous system, being a general asshole to be around all the time? Or are you going to get busy responding in your best interest around you for the people that you love? What are you going to do? And I see it all the time. I see it specifically with people coming out of this industry, right? That go from traditional media to just regular digital media like we're doing. They can't get it together because they still are in this fucking cone of blame. Like, that person ruined my life. Like, you weren't involved in it. How did you respond to it? And I'll tell you why you're here. And when it comes to people that I work with, whether it's drinking or wellness, it's always that one thing. That one thing is you. How did you respond when you had to? Did you respond out of anger? Did you respond out of emotion? Did you respond trying to change the situation with emotion? Because I can guarantee if you did any of those things, it went terribly every time. Doesn't matter how many times you get angry. When you respond in anger, you lose every fucking time. So when I started to get into Stoicism after I quit drinking, I decided that I needed to be emotionally bulletproof. Dude, the Elon Musk stuff, you think it triggers me? It doesn't bother me at all, because I can't
not so much
any of this.
I can see it impacting Lynn's.
Doesn't bother me. Yeah, and those are the people I love talking to, and I will ask them, why are you having an emotional reaction? Well, this pissed me off. Well, why did it piss you off? I don't want to talk about it. Well, then you're never going to get any better. You're never going to learn from it. You're never going to realize what your job is for you, not other people. Fuck other people. Fuck your friends. This is about your life experience, your journey. And this life experience that you have can't be done again. You can't go and fucking redo these moments where you embarrass and shame yourself with an emotional response. So when you talk about people, when you talk about wellness, you talk about people who can't or can. I prefer to look at people through that lens of, can you separate yourself from the emotionality of the moment? Can you figure out a way to respond where you have no vested interest in how this goes? Because we're all trying to engineer a result in our lives, right? And when we can't engineer that result, we fucking get triggered, we snap, we get angry. And when someone tells us that we're wrong, we get even angrier. But guess what? None of those things matter. The only thing that matters is you and your response and your wellness. And when people say, hey, fuck, dude, I work with a guy. He's like, I need to stop drinking. So we stopped drinking. And he's like, I'm still miserable. I'm like, well, you got to figure out what you're here for. And he's like, what do you mean? What are your values? What are you talking about? What values operate your life? What is your operating system? And he's like, I've never been asked that question. So we establish values, we establish virtues, and he lives by those virtues. He runs every decision through those virtues and those values, and his life is 1,000,000 times better. What are you willing to do for a good life? What are you literally willing to do? Are you willing to let life happen to you? And then you just continue to respond like an idiot, making your life worse every day, and then you become a hermit and you're not taking part in this experience? Or are you willing to invest in yourself and learn how to be and not be affected by being? That's the question a lot of people are asking post-pandemic. And I feel like I've had an inside track to actually like life happiness, where it comes to the decisions that I make dictating what happens to me today. And I could explain that to people till they're blue in the face. And I do when they ask. I don't talk about it ever anymore. And the reason why I don't talk about it ever is because nobody wants to hear it. That's really the sad part, is that we live in this time when no one wants to get better at life, right? We live in this time when people are like, I'm over 18. I can figure it out. Well, why are self-help podcasts, philosophy podcasts, psychology podcasts, PTSD podcasts, anxiety podcasts, depression podcasts, ways of living podcasts, meditation podcasts, why are they the biggest, analytically, the biggest niche podcasts in the world right now? Why?
Because people are searching. They're looking for answers.
Bingo.
But they might be looking for answers, but they've already predetermined what that answer is. So if you don't fulfill something quickly with what you're saying to them, they're going to disregard what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think we are very hypocritical as Canadians, as human beings. Quite often we will go out of our way to tell somebody that we need help or that we're looking for help. But if it's not the help that we want, then we're against it, right? Mm-hmm. I think you touched on something with me in the last couple of years. How long have I been doing this now?
2 years.
You? 2 years? I think December was, 2 years. Taking a step outside of a situation, and this is what I do now quite often if I run into any conflict at all. And I don't always it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens occasionally. I take a look out and I go, okay, what was my role in that? Like, how did I add to this? And was there something that I could have done to...
Want me to blow your mind?
What's
if you did that, and here's a challenge for everybody.
I do it all the time.
If you let everybody off the hook in every conflict that you have and you focus solely on yourself, that's it. You forget everything else. Everybody else's role in your life becomes irrelevant. Irrelevant.
Well, see, I'm not there yet. And the reason why, I'll give you an example. Okay. And this is a reason why I am having difficulty with this at times. Okay. I was at a four-way stop the other day. Okay.
Is it a bike lane thing?
No, it's not a bike lane thing. Okay. And I'm going to turn right. And when I got up, I had enough time to realize who was next. Okay. And I was next, but it's traffic. It's rush hour. It's pretty jammed. I'm not going to be able to just get in and go. But the guy across from me, he's next. So he goes. And the guy directly behind him thought he was going to play the power move. And so he starts following. He's just going to do it. And I'm like, fuck you. And I gunned it and drove right in front of him to the point where I had to back up to actually turn right. And I rolled down my window and I said, not today, you fucking asshole. And I actually got in front of him because I was next. Okay. Now, here's the thing.
How'd you feel? Good?
Awesome. Because he needed somebody in his day
to teach him,
to show him that. And to
how'd you feel for like 20 minutes after, though?
Awesome.
Okay. So you
and my wife even said after I calmed down when I rolled the window back up, because he rolled the window down to give me a piece of his mind. And I said, fuck, keep going. Because you're staying there. Because you're a dick and you're not taking advantage of this situation today.
Right.
And my wife said to me, good for you, Lachlan.
Is that what she said? She's encouraging it?
Because people don't stand up for themselves anymore.
She loves you.
Dude. Hold on. But I know that none of that needed to happen. And it was on me. And I'll tell you, if I hadn't have done it, you want to ask me how I would have felt if I hadn't have done that.
Way worse.
I would have been sick to my stomach for 3 days. I would have been so angry at myself for not saying something in that moment. And that happens to me occasionally now because I've stepped out of situations and not done things over the last couple of years. And I think it's stressing me out and causing me more damage to my psyche than if I had jumped in and told the guy to fuck off or somebody that I worked with.
You need to let it out. You
I
can't
swear to
keep it-
God. And I know that goes against everything you're saying and everything you said the last 30 minutes. But there are times when I just like, all right, I'm just going to block you and I'm going to walk away because I don't need this in my life. Right. Or I'm going to avoid this conversation because I know that I'm not going to respond well in it. And it's not going to benefit anybody and it's not important. But that's my problem with taking
you
that
feel
next
like you
step
lost.
with
Yeah,
stoicism.
dude, that's the thing. Is there a lot of people that are like, I feel like I lost if I didn't get my lick in, right? Like that's
or defending myself.
Yeah, but there's like we separate things into winners and losers. And listen, how I grew up is if someone got the last word in, they won. So I could never let anybody get the last word in, like never. And that happened to me last week. I'm going through an intersection. There's a guy pulling out. He blocks really kind of, the only way for me to continue going. He blocks it on a red light so I can't go anywhere. And he knew I was coming. He could see me do it. And he had a big smile on his face and he rolled his window down and he goes, "What you gonna do?" I go, "Wait." And he goes, "That's right. You saw me coming." And I go, "Yeah, I did." And I go, "Why'd you do that? Like, why'd you block out me and all these people?" He's like, "'Cause I can." And I go, "You mean 'cause you're a selfish asswipe? Is that why?" And he's like, "That's right." And I go, "Well, at least we've established that, right? Right? Your wife's got to be happy with you. She's sitting next to you. Does she know she's married to a selfish asswipe?" And that's when his car door opened. And that's when my window rolled up. And I'm like, I didn't need to do that. But fuck, it felt really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, his wife yelled at him. He got back in the car and then he, kind of moved up so everybody could go and blah, 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 blah. But I get what you're saying. It feels like you've lost, but you really haven't lost. I mean, all you've done is just taken that conflict out of your day. It is for me.
It's about
because I still look at it like wins
putting
and losses.
people that need to be put in their place. Because
you're never going to teach anybody.
But that guy takes advantage of situations all the time. And I'm not like that. And that guy was looking to do that right there because he knows 99% of the time he gets away with it. And sometimes I need to be the guy that goes, even if it doesn't teach that guy anything, I'm fine with it. I just need to be the guy that said out loud, "Not today. You're not taking advantage of this situation. I'm not going to let you."
I get that too.
And if you get out of your car, I have a 25-pound flashlight just behind my seat. I'm going to start breaking all the windows out of your car.
Then you've got another problem, right?
That might be. That's another podcast.
Yeah, it is. Thanks for doing this today. I appreciate it. It's nice to get the real in at the end. We never sit around and talk about, it's one, and I struggle with that sometimes, right? Where you're like, man, we got to do a show where a lot of people laugh today. We got to do a show where we talk about Edmonton and hockey players, and we got to do a show where we're talking about Elon. We're going to do a show. By the way, Elon is looking for a CEO. That was just announced. He's still looking. He's just pretending he's not. But sometimes you get a chance to talk to people about the shit that they struggle with because we're like everybody else, right? We're trying to figure all that stuff out too. That willingness to be a better person has to be there. And that's how we operate. So if you're like us, take heart. Everybody's the same. All it requires is a little bit of information and someone next to you to go, "Hey, do you want to do that?" Or a life philosophy. That's the other thing. So many people walk around just, if you're not religious, you don't have a life philosophy. You're like, what the fuck am I here for? You got to figure that out.
There's a lot of people there. I talked to a guy today that calls us on a fairly regular basis and you've had this happen, and I know he's not going to, but talked openly about grabbing a method of ending your life from a drawer in his bedroom, and you know what? I desperately tried, and I think I made him laugh at the end of it. He made himself laugh, but I'm like, dude, we can't do this. We're not going here. We're not having this conversation. I said, but I need you to do something for me. I said, tomorrow morning when you get up and try this, just do this. Just get up every fucking morning and put your feet on the floor. I do this and it works. Try it. Tell me you're going to try it. Just say, fuck, today's going to be a good day. Mm-hmm. And get up and go about your day. And he said, "Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that because I have a really bad back right now." And we all burst out laughing. And maybe that laugh will help, right? Shake it off. He's a B's a bad drinker and quite often will call us. But yeah, there's a lot of people struggling right now. You know what? And I want to say this too. I do appreciate, and I hope you know this. And I disagree with you. I think we have a lot of real, very real moments on this podcast. Not just you, but Lynn's and guests and myself. I think we do share who we are, and we're fucking brutally open on this thing. Sometimes to a point of uncomfortability, if I'm being honest, but I do appreciate, even though I'm not there yet. Like on the Stoicism boat.
None of us are. None of us are.
I'm in the dinghy.
Yeah, you're in the jet ski. I'm just in like a raft, a larger raft. I mean, you know, life is about that process of learning. It's not about anything else. No one ever arrives, right? Let me encourage everybody out there that's having those thoughts. If you think you're never going to get it together and life isn't worth living, it is. I mean, you're 1 in 400 quadrillion chance of being born. This is a pretty special opportunity to experience life on Earth, right? And you want to experience it in a joyful way. You want people to like you and you want to like yourself, but people only like you when you really know who you are. I'd highly encourage everybody to read this. Epictetus, The Art of Living. Epictetus is a Stoic philosopher. He was a slave, had his leg broken by his master, didn't cry, didn't complain, just talked about freedom in his own mind. Because that's what people struggle with, right? Is everybody, you look at somebody next to another person and you're like, that guy's suicidal, that guy isn't. They both look exactly the same. What's the difference? It's the value judgment the person who's suicidal places on things, right? It's literally how he looks at life, how he responds to life. And does he have the ability to do it? Not a lot of people do. Not a lot of people have the ability to go, you know what, this life is worth living, and these experiences that I have are negative are actually fuel to make me understand and help me understand how to navigate, negotiate life in a way where I can learn and treat these things like fuel. Whether it's your kid goes to rehab, whether you have a drinking problem, whether you get divorced, whether you go broke, whatever the situation is you deal with, you have one response that works, and that's to choose to respond well, not to fucking capitulate. Right? Not to quit. Everybody's felt it. Everybody's thought it. We all have. Oh, it's fucking not worth it. It is always worth it. When there is a life, it's always worth it. It's always worth you trying to be happy. Because listen, what are we fucking here for? Are we here to just experience it, just to be here, just to breathe? No, man. We're here to do the work of life, which is to be and get better at things, which is to try harder every day to understand how you do that. Not just expect it to happen, right? It's to physically work at the idea that you could be better at life, that you can be emotionally bulletproof by and large to the other things that other people do. I don't care about anything that anybody says about me ever. I used to care so much it would crush me if someone said something bad about me. It happens every day. I use it for content now. I think it's interesting, and I discount it all because I know me and I like me, right? And that's where people who are struggling need to get is, do you like yourself? Because you'll live with the shame of your actions. You won't live the shame of yourself, but you'll tend to look at yourself through that lens. If you can't understand a better way to experience life where you don't look at everything like it's an affront to you or you're the centerpiece of all those stories. You're not. Your wellness is. But fuck, this is a life that everybody goes through it. Everybody has a tough time. Everybody experiences struggles. What are you willing to do about it? Just allow it to happen and fucking live in misery, triggered misery for the rest of your life? That ain't good. You can't do that. Nobody can. Yeah. It's unsustainable. You're welcome, by the way, world.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for doing this, dude.
I'm going to go fight with people on Twitter now. Okay.
You laugh because I am. That's what I'm going to do after this. I'm going to go shit post a bunch of people and react poorly. That's going to be a lot of fun this afternoon. I'm going to go give this whole conversation back just on Twitter alone. Locker Cross 957 Cruise FM in Edmonton is where you can listen to him every single week. The morning host of the Locker Room. Follow him on Twitter at Locker Cross.
Send me a note and I'll send you the link. We're on in the mornings. We're live. We're a fun show.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. That's good. We talked about Winnipeg. We talked about booze. And then we all started talking about philosophy. Listen, you don't need religion. You don't need friends. Friends are nice. You do invest in yourself. It's the only thing that works, literally. Invest in understanding the objective reality that you live in and how to respond to it well. That's all we have. That's it. You're welcome. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Appreciate you being here. Thanks to Matt Cundill for joining us today from Sound Off Media. If you're looking for a podcast, looking to do one, looking to make yours work, Sound Off Media, or hit him up on Twitter, at Matt Cundill. On Twitter is where you can find him. And thanks to Locke. Don't forget, you can listen to him every weekday morning. Host of the Locker Room, 957cruisefm.ca. Great rock and roll morning show, the best in the country. Thanks to our friends at Ed's Fine Imports as well. They make Gitch, GITCH3, promo code. That's your promo code for Ed's Underwear. You need to buy some for somebody this Christmas, he'll send them to you. You got a couple days. Got 5 days till Christmas. He'll send them to you in 2. 4 pairs of underwear for the price of 3. Promo code GITCH3. Go get it now. EdsFineImports.com. Also, listen, the new year comes a new opportunity to loosen and tighten things. That's why we want to talk about our friends at Cantork, Canada Assembly Tool Experts. Cantork makes rugged, hardworking, beautiful torque wrenches. Canada's leading industrial tool experts, offering you the very best in sales, service, rentals, calibration, maintenance, and custom fabrication of industrial torque tools. No matter how the scale of your bolting project is, they have your solution. Go to cantork.com today. Ask for my friend Colin. I believe he's in Mexico right now. He sent me some zipline videos the other day. Big, beefy dude flying down a Mexican zipline, splashing into the water. He's taking a break from working hard for Canadians. Canadian manufactured, everything in Canada, Canadian company, cantork.com. Check him out today. And last but not least, of course, cannot forget our friends at kivlaw.ca. You in trouble? Need some legal help? Kivlaw defense attorneys are the best in the business at keeping you A, safe, B, free, and C, setting you up to be successful after you've gone through whatever legal issue that they will take care with you and for you. These are great human beings. Kivlaw.ca. Southern Ontario's best defense attorneys are here to help you, here to work with you, and they're my friends, so they'll make sure that you get a great deal too. Just email Rob yourself. Here's his email address, robert@kivlaw.ca. Again, robert@kivlaw.ca. Email them today. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for being here. See you tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Paul Hendrick, the Toronto Maple Leafs, former Toronto Maple Leafs TV guy. He's going to join us tomorrow. See you then. Bye.